A Dialogue of Comfort against Tribulation by St. Thomas More. Book 3, Chapter 1. Vincent. Well, fare your heart, good uncle, for this good counsel of yours, for surely methinketh that this is marvellous good. But yet heard I once a right learned and very good man say that it would be great folly, and very perilous too, if a man should think upon any such thing, or imagine any such question in his mind, for fear of double peril that may follow thereupon. For he shall be likely to answer himself that he will rather suffer any painful death than forsake his faith, and by that bold appointment should he fall into the fault of St. Peter, who of oversight made a proud promise, and soon had a foul fall. Or else would he be likely to think that rather than abide the pain he would forsake God indeed, and by that mind should he sin deadly through his own folly, whereas he needeth not do so, since he shall peradventure never come in the peril to be put thereto. And therefore it would be most wisdom never to think upon any such manner of question. Anthony. I believe well, cousin, that you have heard some men who would so say, for I can show almost as much as that, left in writing by a very good man and a great solemn doctor. But yet, cousin, although I should happen to find one or two more, as good men and as well learned too, who would both twain say and write the same, yet would I not fear for my part to counsel my friend to the contrary. For, cousin, if his mind answer him as St. Peter answered Christ, that he will rather die than forsake him, though he say therein more unto himself than he should be, peradventure, able to make good, if it came to the point, yet I perceive not that he doth in that thought any deadly displeasure unto God. For St. Peter, though he said more than he could perform, yet in his so saying offended not God greatly neither. But his offence was when he did not afterward do as so well as he said before. But now may this man be likely never to fall in the peril of breaking that appointment, since of some 10,000 that shall so examine themselves, never one shall fall in the peril. And yet for them to have that good purpose all their life, seemeth me no more harm in the meanwhile, than for a great beggar who hath never a penny, to think that if he had great substance, he would give great alms for God's sake. But now is all the peril, if the man answer himself that he would in such case rather forsake the faith of Christ with his mouth, and keep it still in his heart, than for the confessing of it to endure a painful death. For by this mind he falleth in deadly sin, which he never would have fallen in, if he had never put himself the question. But in good faith methinketh that he who upon that question put unto himself by himself will make himself that answer, hath the habit of faith so faint and cold, that for the better knowledge of himself and of his necessity to pray for more strength of grace, he had need to have the question put to him, either by himself or by some other man. Besides this, to counsel a man never to think on that question is, to my mind, as reasonable as the medicine that I have heard taught someone for the toothache. To go thrice about a churchyard and never think on a foxtail. For if the counsel be not given them, it cannot serve them, and if it be given them, it must put the point of the matter in their mind, and forthwith to reject it, and think therein neither one thing nor the other, is a thing that may be sooner bidden than obeyed. I think also that very few men can escape it, For though they would never think on it by themselves, yet in one place or another, where they shall happen to come in company, they shall have the question by adventure so proposed and put forth, that like as, while a man heareth some one talking to him, he can close his eyes if he will, but he cannot make himself sleep, so shall they, whether they will or not, think one thing or the other therein. Finally, when Christ spoke so often and so plain of the matter, that every man should, upon pain of damnation, openly confess his faith, if men took him, and by dread of death would drive him to the contrary, it seemeth me in a manner implied that we are bound conditionally to have evermore that mind, actually sometimes, and evermore habitually, that if the case should so befall, then with God's help so we would do. And thus much methinketh necessary for every man and woman to be always of this mind, and often to think thereon. And where they find in the thinking thereon that their hearts shudder and shrink in the remembrance of the pain that their imagination representeth to the mind, then must they call to mind and remember the great pain and torment that Christ suffered for them, and heartily pray for grace that if the case should so befall, God should give them strength to stand. And thus, with exercise of such meditation, though men should never stand full out of fear of falling, yet must they persevere in good hope and in full purpose of standing. And this seemeth to me, cousin, so far forth the mind that every Christian man and woman must needs have, that methinketh every curate should often counsel all his parishioners, beginning in their tender youth, to know this point and think on it, and little by little, from their very childhood, accustom them sweetly and pleasantly in the meditation thereof. Thereby the goodness of God shall not fail so to inspire the grace of his Holy Spirit into their hearts, in reward of that virtuous diligence, that through such actual meditation he shall confirm them in such a sure habit of spiritual faithful strength, that all the devils in hell, with all the wrestling they can make, shall never be able to wrest it out of their heart. By my troth, uncle, methinketh that you say very well. I say surely, cousin, as I think. And yet all this have I said concerning them that dwell in such places, that they are never like in their lives to come in the danger to be put to the proof. Howbeit, many a man may think himself far from it, who yet may fortune to come to it by some chance or other, either for the truth of faith or for the truth of justice, which go almost all alike. But now you and I, cousin, and all our friends here, are far in another point, for we are so likely to fall in the experience of it soon, that it would have been more timely for us, all other things set aside, to have devised upon this matter, and firmly to have settled ourselves upon a false point long ago, than to begin to commune and counsel upon it now. In good faith, uncle, you say therein very truth, and would God it had come sooner in my mind. But yet is it better late than never, and I trust God shall yet give us respite and time. And, that we lose no part thereof, uncle, I pray you proceed now with your good counsel therein. Very gladly, cousin, shall I now go forth in the fourth temptation, which alone remaineth to be treated of, and properly pertaineth wholly unto this present purpose. End of chapter 1.